Hey guys, welcome to episode 84 of The Green Life. I am so excited about today's episode. I have here a guest that I truly look up to for her wonderful channel on YouTube, but also for being such a sweetheart. I'm talking about Maddie from Let's Eat Plants. If you don't follow her channel, you have to go and follow it. She started everything because she was on a journey to get healthier, lose weight, and she did this by organizing her meals, meal prepping, and this really just became video sharing, a lot of information, a lot of tips, and a course on how to meal prep. So she's the meal prep queen. I love how she shares information. I love how she's approachable, she's real. So if you don't follow her, go and follow her now. Now, before we get into the episode, a big shout out to Namawell, of course, for the J2 and the C2. So the J2 is the juicer, the C2 is the juicer plus the blender. So now you can make fresh, cold pressed juices as well as getting your soups and ice creams and smoothies, you name it, you can do it with this one-stop machine. If you're looking for a new appliance and you want to really invest in your kitchen, go into the show notes and use my 10% discount. I don't make money out of this, it's just for you as a gift. Also, I have a link to Dr. Morse's herbs, so if you're looking to cleanse your body, detoxify, and work on a protocol, you can get your herbs from that site, from that link, and also get 5% discount. It's a one-off discount, so use it wisely. I do make money out of this. I'm an affiliate, so thank you if you're buying from that because you support the channel. I'm also sharing my own link for my work as well as my retreat here in Portugal. If you're looking for a place to go next year in 2024, this is the place to come. But also if you are a practitioner and looking for a place to host a retreat, we welcome you and I'm happy to chat to you to see how I can support. All right, without further ado, no more dilly-dally. Let's get into this beautiful episode. Welcome, Maddie. Hi, Maddie. Thank you so much for being on The Green Life today. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm good. Such a pleasure to have you here. I've been following you for a while, as you know, and I absolutely love your content and how you share it. And I love your voice. So I'm really happy you are on here.
Thank you.
So most people will know about Let's Eat Plants because it's really grown in popularity and it's such a nice channel to follow. And if they are not, I put everything in the show notes so people will follow you. But if you want to share a little bit about your journey, I would love to know how it all gets started and how you became this wonderful coach, and especially with a niche for food prep. Give me though. How did it start?
Sure. Do you want to know my YouTube journey or my vegan journey or both? Or
both, because I think they're interlinked, right?
I guess a little bit. Actually, I've been vegan for quite a while now, since basically since the beginning of 2018. But it really kind of started even before that. Like my husband decided we're on this documentary kick. And we were watching like every documentary under the sun. And then somehow vegan documentaries got into our feed as well. And we just started binge watching all of them, like Earthlings, What the Health, Cowspiracy, Vegucated, like every single one. And we were just like, oh my gosh, how did we not know all of this information, right? But even after watching them, it still took us a couple years to gradually transition. And then in 2017, we were on this travel tour of we were moving to Canada after living abroad. And so we were like, let's do one final travel tour. Let's try and go vegan. So we were traveling and trying to be vegan at the same time in these very rural parts. And that was really, it was challenging, but it was like, hey, actually, we can do this. So when we got back to Canada, he was like, we're both like, let's go full-time vegan. And it was so easy. And so that was in 2018 at the very beginning or end of 2017. And we've been vegan ever since. And when we got back, so I'm originally from the US, my husband's from Canada. And he was like, well, you're living in this new country. I used to do teaching when we were living abroad. And he's like, what would you want to do if you could do anything? And I'm like, oh, wow, I can do anything. He's like, yeah, why don't you follow your passion? Because, teaching isn't really an option here for me. So I was like, well, I would love to just be in the kitchen all day. And he's like, why don't you start a YouTube channel? That would be so exciting. And I'm like, okay, let's do it. So it was just kind of like, it just organically happened. And I'm like, okay, I'm newly vegan. Let me share some recipes that I'm trying. And that was how the YouTube channel got started. And as I had the channel for a while, I started, well, actually, I think it was like pretty early on in my journey. I shared like 1 or 2 meal prep videos, and like I got a little bit of interest, but not as much as when I shared them like a couple years later. And then when people saw those, they were like, whoa, how did you do all that? And I'm like, oh, it's really easy. I thought everyone was doing this. I was like, let me share more about that. And then I was asking people, would you want like more information about this? And people were like, heck yes. So I built a course around it. And it was basically just like people were interested, and therefore I made the content about it. So
I
it's really just
absolutely love it.
yeah, it's just been me sharing what I'm eating at home, and I try and keep it simple and yeah, easy to do.
Amazing. Okay, so I tell you what, kudos to your husband for being so supportive and allowing you to really, branch out into something you're passionate
It's
about.
true.
But I also love the fact that you used your education background in building a course, because that's such a talent. It's not very easy to actually build the outline for a course and deliver it in a way that people actually, take it on board and can fulfill it and can finish it. So I think that's really important, and it's a skill that wonderful that you have. But also, from some of your videos, I know that you also wanted to share more about eating in a certain way, because you went through a health kick as well and wanting to lose weight. Can you take me through that little part of the journey? What happened?
Yeah. So I've always eaten pretty healthy. Like when my husband and I were on the documentary kick, we were also all about health at that time. And like even growing up, I ate pretty healthy. So I feel pretty lucky to have that like kind of background, I guess. And so he and I just went on like this gym kick and like super health kick. So I feel like I kind of know how to lose weight and like how to get my body to a place that I wanted it to be. And during the pandemic, it was just like everyone's stuck at home. I wasn't going to the gym. It was, people were stressed out, myself included. We didn't know what was happening in the future. So it was a lot of like stress eating and just not going out much and not exercising and all of those things. Like I showed a before and after photo of myself, and someone was like, I think you got them switched. And I was like, no. The before I was skinny and the after I was not, because I gained like 20 pounds in a year. It was pretty crazy. Yeah. So I felt a little bit uncomfortable, and like 20 pounds, it isn't that much. I didn't want to be like, oh my gosh, it was just more about how I felt about myself. And I felt like I wasn't exercising. I wasn't eating as healthily as I could. And those were the most important things to just kind of get my health back on track. So that was really when I started sharing about the meal preps and like, okay, let's simplify it. My husband is very lazy in the kitchen. He's just like, I want to reheat and eat kind of thing. So I'm like, okay, let's make it easy for both of us. I don't want to have to worry about cooking for him all the time either. So if we have veggies prepped, he'll eat them, I'll eat them. And I just found it was the simplest way to make sure that I was eating those healthy foods without having to think about it or stress about it. So after doing that, I finally got my health back on track. It still took, a while. It took about 6 months. And I wasn't able to exercise because I had this pinched nerve in my neck. It was it was a struggle, but, I just feel like it's just this tool that I can always rely on. And having that in your back pocket is so helpful at times like that.
Absolutely. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for that. I love that because I think a lot of people can actually relate. First of all, during the lockdowns, a lot of people gain weight. It was like the pandemic was mostly weight gain.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, everyone is just becoming 1 and 2 and 3 size larger. But so that was a little bit crazy because obviously there is such a big correlation between our weight and our health. And I know that lately you've actually been exploring also some gadgets to look at a whole metabolic health, that your whole metabolic health. So actually, what are the biggest thing you learned through this journey of getting healthier? And we're going to go into the food prep, of course, but I want to know more about the things that you didn't maybe know before that you never paid attention to, because as you know, as you said, you grew up being healthy, you knew how to
Yeah.
exercise and being active and eating well, but then once you stopped, you get that reality check, right? And then you have to go back, and now it seems like you're diving a little bit more into the health part and understanding
Yeah.
metabolism and understanding your body better.
Yeah.
And I love you to just share the things that really stood up for you and the things that you really feel like you learned a lot on.
Sure. I would say my knowledge on that is pretty elementary, but something that I definitely have learned in the past few years is like weight is not everything, right? Weight is just a number. And even like BMI, I think a lot of people use BMI to calculate if you're healthy or not. And there's a lot of times more to that number than what meets the eye. And like with working out, you gain a lot of muscle, and that can affect your weight and your BMI and make it seem like you're overweight when you're not necessarily.
Mm.
So, you kind of have to know your own body and know, like, I actually have been using a scale to help me measure fat percentage and things like that, because I think that those things are more important than necessarily just your one number of weight.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I agree. And I know you are a big follower of Dr. Gregor. What are the
Mm.
biggest? I know you love him. He's a fun guy. Um, what are the things that you really feel like you learned so much from him that you translated into in your work?
Okay, I'll tell you why Dr. Gregor is my favorite, because I just feel that he is like, he's laying everything out for you in terms of this is optimal health. You can follow it or not. It's up to you. That's okay. Whatever you want to do. He's not like getting mad at anyone if they don't want to follow it. He's just, here are the guidelines. And if you want to be at your optimum health, follow these. Simple, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that other people have told me, oh, I feel he's too restrictive. You can't eat certain things. And I'm like, he's not saying you can't eat them. He's just saying for optimal health, eat these ones. So I just really like that approach. And I love the Daily Dozen, because if you're eating all of those foods on that Daily Dozen list, you can be very healthy. You could even eat a couple extra foods if you wanted to, that's just the minimum you should eat for optimum health. And I just love that all of his information is science backed and research backed. And yeah, I just think it's great.
And you met him, right? You met him at a
I
fair?
did. Yeah, at the Planted Expo, I believe it was called, here in Toronto. And he was the speaker, and I was so excited. And I just was like, hey, can we get a picture? And he's like, what do you do? And I was like, I'm a YouTuber, and I teach people sometimes about the Daily Dozen. He's like, oh, that's really cool. So
And that is amazing. Well done.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Going back to your story of moving from living abroad and then coming back to do Northern America and living in Canada, I believe you're from California originally, right?
Yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
So, how is it the transition between obviously, being a California girl where the weather is like mild, you can eat more fresh food, especially fruits in such an easy way, and then
Yeah.
transitioning to Toronto where the winter are harsh.
Yeah.
So, how do you deal with that, and how does that impact the way that you actually eat?
That's a great question. And even actually, I was living in Hong Kong before we moved to Canada. So I even feel that in Hong Kong, like, there's goods and bads about every place, right?
Mhm.
In Hong Kong, we had a lot of access to tropical fruits and like other fruits that are a little bit harder to find here. And it was pretty inexpensive as well. Like, you could go to what they call the wet markets, which is kind of just like a farmer's market. And they're out every single day, and you can pick up all this fresh produce for really inexpensive. So it was close to our house. We would just walk everywhere. We used public transportation, and I felt a lot more active. And then moving back to North America, it's like, okay, back to like a suburb life. It's a little bit, you drive most places, you go to the grocery store to get your food. I mean, we still do have farmers markets, but of course in Canada in the winter, it's just a lot more indoors. People aren't going outside as much. So, and just being from California, like you said, is a little bit of a transition for me to snow and everything. But I mean, it's all right. It's it's manageable. I think that like with the food, I just have shifted everything to shopping at the grocery stores. And we're lucky that we have a lot of great seasonal produce here, even at the grocery stores. I look for Canadian grown, like right now, there's so much squash and sweet potatoes and, lots of great stuff available for pretty inexpensive overall. Like, of course, grocery prices have risen a lot lately, and like we're all feeling that for sure. But we're lucky that there are still some good deals out there if you shop for them, right? You gotta keep an eye out for the good deals.
Yeah, brilliant. We'll go back to actually shopping with the budget in mind. But for now,
yeah,
I'd like to go back to you preparing food and just asking you, before you went on this journey of being in the kitchen, creating new dishes, were you a big cook ahead of that? No.
No, I feel like maybe it shows with my cooking on YouTube because I'm a little bit I've learned a lot. Like I've learned a lot in the last 4 years because before my specialty was salad. Like I can chop and dice and mix it all together and make a good dressing. Like that's no problem. I was always the one who brought the salad to the potluck. And just because I wanted to eat the salad, I was good at making it. So it was a win-win. I've always been like semi-decent at baking. I'm not a total loss there. But like cooking in general, it was a lot of like figuring out how to tell when things are done. Like even with vegetables, you want it to be the right softness or crispness or whatever. So there was definitely a learning curve there for me. But it's also really fun to learn. Like I've been learning a lot about other cuisines. So my husband's mother, my mother-in-law, is Chinese, but they're from Vietnam. So they've been teaching me like a lot of Vietnamese cooking. And I just love learning about like different cultures cooking. And yeah, it's definitely a learning experience.
I love that though, because it just shows that we can really acquire these new skills no matter what. And I feel like, especially for people I hear so many people, especially my clients, sometimes they're like, I don't know how to cook, or I don't love cooking. And it's like, okay, you don't have to like it, you don't have to love it, but it's a necessary skill, especially these days, because prices of food are going up. So going out all the time will be unbelievably expensive, but also, just to be healthier, because as much as you can go to a healthy restaurant or even a vegan one, the issue always becomes that it's not cooked in the most healthy way. It needs to be delicious. It needs to really get people to come back. So it's very different when you cook at home. So well done for getting that skill under the belt. That's great. And when you started the channel, who was your inspiration? And also, like, what was the hardest dish that you have made so far?
Good question. What was the hardest dish? Gosh, let me come back to that. I'm not sure off the top of my head. Definitely my inspiration was like watching other YouTubers. There's a lot of people who came before me, and I feel so lucky to like have been able to look at their channels and be like, okay, wow, look at all the vegans in the YouTube space. There's definitely a place for us. And actually, when I first got on YouTube, I was like, oh, everything's already been done. I don't need to make a video about that. And so I didn't start out making a lot of basics videos because I thought once there's one video about it, that means no one else needs to make a video about it, which is really silly. So, when I've gone back and I've made basics videos, people are like, wow, I had no idea about this thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, let me make more of these basics, because I think a lot of times, like you said, people, if they don't know how to cook, they just want to learn those basic things, and we kind of need to start somewhere and build up from that. So yeah, let me think about the most difficult dish I've made. Seitan, actually. Seitan, which is made from vital wheat gluten. And that, at the beginning, it was really difficult. The very first time I ever made it, I boiled it, which learning now is not really the best method of cooking. So I boiled it, and I don't even think I wrapped it in anything. And it just like got bigger and bigger and bigger. It expands when you cook it. And so it like soaked up all this moisture. It looked like a growing brain, and it was not tasty.
That's funny. I only made seitan using the vital gluten with chickpeas to make like steaks, but I never really made like the seitan or like I know that you have the videos and I need to find the patience to do it. But I definitely I find it fascinating to see these new recipes. But then I also take it always the next step because I kind of don't cook with oil, and I know you actually sometimes you switch between using and not, so that's great. But yeah, I try to make things a little healthy, and sometimes they're like a total disaster. But especially with the baking. Oh my God, I am not a good baker. Like you are good. I'm just like if I bake, it's like sometimes a disaster and a half. So
It's science. All you got to do is follow the recipe. I promise.
yeah. I know, and I'm really bad at following recipes. That's one of the problems.
There it is.
Yeah, that it is. So but I find it really, I mean, I love watching when somebody just creates these beautiful things. And I really, one of the things I like to talk about is obviously when it comes to savory food, it's kind of almost easy to get it right because you have the ingredients that you use really dictate how healthy a dish is going to be. And it's very easy to manage that. But you also dove a little bit into making sweets, which of course not just baking, but also your beautiful. You had a series of ice cream making challenges. I need to know. I mean, some of them, the ingredients are like, what? How did you come up with those? And what is your best one so far?
That's a good question. I think that was like, let me just experiment and see what works. And in my mind, if I get an idea, I just want to make it. Like actually, my dream would just be to live in a test kitchen with unlimited ingredients and just trying things out all day. Because in my mind, you can make ice cream out of anything. You can make it out of cauliflower, out of potatoes, whatever. You really just need the formula of like you have the base, maybe a little bit of fat because ice cream does prefer to be a little bit fatty to have less of a freezing effect, I guess. There's some kind of science there, right? And then you need a sweetener. So if you have those three components, you can make an ice cream. And I'm like, why not? Let's try. I think my best one so far is the zucchini because the zucchini was so unexpected. And I've had people make that recipe and they're like, wow, I'm so surprised. This worked really well. It was really good. And I made it into a mint chocolate chip. So it was like zucchini, avocado for some fat, and also the color for mint chocolate chip. And then like some fresh mint, or you can use mint extract and then chocolate chips and a sweetener, of course. And I think you could really make that into other flavors as well. You know, if you switched out the mint, or if you didn't want to make it green, you didn't have to use avocado for the fat. You could use cashews or coconut cream or something like that. So yeah, I just love the experimentation process and thinking about like, well, let's just try it. If I had more time, I would be trying more recipes. And the other thing is, you know, I don't want to be stuck eating 27 different failed ice creams or even successful ice creams. It would be too much. So I have to limit myself to like a few experiments over the summer and just see how it goes.
Do you ever share what you make with your family?
I do. They're not as excited about it. Even my husband, I feel he's a pretty harsh critic. So if it's husband approved, it's like, okay, normal people will also like this, normal people. But like I myself will eat pretty much anything. And I think like, hey, if it tastes decent, it's all about your personal preference. And I like to try and instill that in my videos as well. Like, please season to your taste because everyone's taste buds are going to be different. Some people love one recipe and other people hate the exact same recipe. So, you know, it's all about taste as you go and just kind of add a little bit of more of whatever elements you prefer.
Yeah, so true. I like that approach. And I think actually that's one of the things that really comes through into your videos. And that is how you allow people to just be more open and just do it as you feel. I mean, of course, talking about baking, that's a little more complicated. Otherwise they all end up like me not making a very good dessert. But otherwise it's quite cool to experiment with your food and try find what works for you and just more of this, more of that. And also the way that you are flexible even with the ingredients, like whatever you have, use it. And it will just very much like very little change the taste of the of the recipe, but at least you're using what you have, which is again very important because we don't want to waste anything, especially these days. So I was wondering if how one of the things that people don't think about perhaps is how helpful really food prep is. And you obviously have two kind of food preps as well. You actually make different recipes and you can just mix and match and you have them already ready. Or is the food prep in the sense of cleaning and washing and getting everything ready? Now, if people haven't watched your videos, which I hope they will after this, can we just give them the difference between the two, and also how they make life easier? So from prepping actual meals to prepping just the ingredients.
Yeah, I actually teach in my course that there are 3 different types. So the first one is just a wash and chop. Like if you really don't have time to do anything, just wash and chop your veggies, right? And make sure that they're ready to use throughout the week. Because when you open the fridge and everything's like in its original packaging, you're like, oh my gosh, if I were to make a salad right now, I have to take out the lettuce, the carrots, the cucumber, celery, all of those things, wash them separately and chop them into a salad that's going to take 20 or 30 minutes for a salad. Come on, that's crazy. Of course, I don't want to do that. So the first one is just to wash and chop everything. If you have a little bit more time, you can move on to the second phase, which is what I call a batch prep. I think people also refer to it as ingredient prep. Because you're prepping different ingredients or components to meals. So like in addition to the veggies, you could also steam some veggies so that they're cooked and ready to use. Or you could make a pot of grains like quinoa, brown rice, buckwheat, whatever you want to eat that week. And you can also do a batch of beans like black beans, chickpeas, anything you like. And you could even do like a prepared sauce as well, like get your dressings ready, get your marinara sauce ready, whatever kind of mixture you want to be able to put them all together more easily, right? So that's kind of the idea behind batch prep. And then a recipe prep would be if you want it just 100%, everything's ready to go. So you just take out a Tupperware from the fridge and it is a full set meal. I think that's what most people think a meal prep is, which usually like I see the bodybuilders doing those types of meal preps, and that totally works too. Like if you are really busy, you just need something ready to grab and go when you get home from work, or even something to take to work. Like those have been really, really helpful. That's actually my husband's favorite because it's zero work for him. But that one does take a little bit more work on the prep day. So you do need to be prepared to spend maybe 3 or so hours to get your meals in their little Tupperwares and just have everything ready. And you can do prep days multiple times a week if you wanted to do one on a Sunday and then one midweek. If one day is too much, you can always break it up. Or like I said, if you just have time to wash and chop and you want things ready to go, that's a really good way to do it.
And how do you learn how to preserve the food? So once the food is washed, and to put it in the fridge so that it doesn't go off as quickly?
It was a combination of trial and error and also like research. So I've done a lot of research to be like, okay, well, it doesn't seem like this one's lasting as long. How long should I keep whatever it is in the fridge? And I've learned little tips along the way, like with celery and carrots, you can keep them submerged in water. If you want to keep them crisp longer, just change out the water every few days. Like I think that I have a different method than some people of wrapping my lettuce. I like to wrap it in a tea towel to absorb some of the moisture. Just little things that you kind of try out. It worked for me, so I just kept doing it. It may not work for everyone. And, it's also like the recipes. Like if you try it, you don't like it, then you don't have to use that method. There are other methods that you could do instead.
Brilliant. And when it comes to freezing, what's the best approach? Because obviously when you cook a lot, you want to make sure that you get to it. But sometimes there's so much food if you are batch prepping.
Yeah.
And I know that you love to use the freezer, and especially for things, it's very smart, things like waffles. I never thought about putting waffles and pancakes in the freezer. Genius. So for people like me that are like, okay, how does this work? So how do you know what to freeze and what is freeze friendly freezer friendly. And also to say waffles, what's the best way to like defrost them without them becoming all soggy when they start defrosting?
That's a great question. So, with the waffles in particular, I'll answer that question first. I have a toaster oven. So I would highly recommend a toaster oven or even just a toaster, one of the 2-slot ones that you pop down like that. Either of those, you can just put the frozen waffle directly in there and just start toasting it, and it will reheat perfectly. The only thing is with a microwave, it would get a little bit soggy. So that one, I would say, if you don't have a toaster or a toaster oven, the waffles and pancakes can be a little bit difficult. I guess you could use a regular oven.
Yeah.
It would take a long time to heat up, but an option. Yeah. And that I got the idea from like Eggos, like at the grocery store, they sell frozen waffles. And I'm like, I used to love frozen waffles. I'm going to make my own, right?
Genius.
So like frozen food is definitely the easiest place to start. If you make a double batch of something, you freeze half of it, right? So I like to always recommend to freeze in portions that you want to defrost in. So for example, if you make a big batch of, we'll just say, pasta sauce, then you want to freeze it in a portion that you would only want to defrost that portion. So don't freeze it everything all together in one huge amount, because then you'll have to defrost it all together. You section it out into different portions, and then you can freeze those individually. Take one out as needed. Same with beans. I just saw on my last video, somebody recommended using those silicone muffin cups. Like when you bake muffins, they have the little muffin cups. They have those made out of silicone. So they're washable, reuse them over and over. And you just freeze some beans or portions of rice in those little cups. And then you have you can pop out one or two. You can, once they're frozen, you can pop them all into like a larger Tupperware and just keep all the little, they're kind of like hockey pucks, right? Yeah. Once they're in that shape, and just put them all in a Tupperware and then take out one or two at a time and defrost those all together. And then you have a little meal. I use the microwave a lot, probably because Dr. Gregor said it was okay. And once he said it was okay, I was like, okay, let's do it. I grew up without one. I used to be really anti-microwave. My mom was like, no, we can't use the microwave. But I think that it's probably okay. If you didn't want to use a microwave, you can always reheat things on the stovetop. That's what I always used to do. And it doesn't take that much more time. It's maybe extra 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a microwave anymore. We used to. It's funny that Dr. Gregor said it's fine, because then at the time when I was looking into that, I talked to a professor from the Carolina Institute in Stockholm, the university, and he was doing research on that. Actually, I reached out to him first to talk about artificial sweeteners and the correlation to dementia. And then he put me in touch with one of his colleagues he was doing research on the microwaves. And one of the things that the two things obviously struck me, because one is the sweeteners. They don't want to fund this research anymore, but he had found that there's a big correlation between things like what is that now? Not stevia. I have stevia in mind because that's now the big one. But like Nutriva, I don't know, those fake aspartame, and Alzheimer's. And so it was like, there's a big correlation. Is not good for you, and probably because of the conversion of it in fatty liver and how it affects the metabolism. He didn't give me details. I think he was really disappointed that he had to really pack up the research. But then his colleague that was like about microwave, he was sharing with me that in his research, he had found that we actually have to step about 20 meters away from a microwave when it's operational. He didn't go so much. Yeah, he didn't go so much into details about what it does to the food. It didn't describe that. So maybe that doesn't, necessarily hurt the food. And especially when it's frozen, because there's a lot of water content that evaporates. So I think it's probably fine. But I was saying, if you use a microwave, you want to be away from the microwave 20 meters at least. And so I was like, that's a long distance. I don't even know if I have 20 meters in the toilet in the kitchen. So, so I was like, I'm gonna have to go into the bedroom while that refrosts. I think I'm not gonna use the microwave anymore.
Yeah, that's a good point. Ours is like off in a little nook. I wonder if like going around the
Maybe you might you might have to
refrigerator is okay.
calculate. That's interesting though. So I wonder if Dr. Gregor just looked at the impact on the food per se, not so much
I
on
believe
the
it.
yeah,
Yes.
so not so much on
Yeah.
us on our body. And of course, we are actually bombarded with EMF all the time. I mean, we have our cell phones, we have Wi-Fi, there's
Yeah,
EMF
it's
everywhere.
true.
So definitely I thought it wasn't necessary. So I use also stove and oven, and so far so good. Honestly, I haven't really
Yep,
missed the microwave. So it's good that there are options, though. So thank you for sharing
definitely.
that. And
Yeah.
then one of the things, obviously, that I think is very important to talk about is, well, the cost of food is going up, as you mentioned earlier, and it's becoming very hard to be on a budget that is, you know, decent for a lot of families. So with the when inflation of prices, deflation of currencies, what is the best tools you found to make sure that you actually can afford healthy food? Because that's actually the key word. Because of course, unhealthy food is always cheaper short
Yeah.
term,
Yeah.
but healthy food so that you can, you know, eat your veggies, eat your fruit, and still be on a budget.
Number one, I would say is frozen because I love the freezer. But if you were to compare fresh price, like price per gram, if you were to compare fresh versus frozen, frozen always comes out cheaper. So if you want to get like your berries, make sure you're getting your berries every day. Even lots of greens they have frozen. We do a lot of like frozen peas, edamame, corn, things like that. Definitely buy frozen. If that's not an option, I always also like to look for what's on sale that week at the grocery store. And I kind of do my meal prepping like based on that, like what's in season and also what's on sale. So I check the flyers, like they have the online flyers now for our store. And I check it and see like what's on sale this week and kind of base the menu around that, because why am I going to go out and buy blueberries right now in winter when they're, oh my gosh, ridiculously priced, especially the organic ones? It's so crazy. It's this tiny little box for like $7. And that's insane. So yeah, frozen, check the flyers. At our store, they also have like the bargain section. Like they'll have a little section in the store where things are maybe a few days old or whatever. I also subscribed to a produce delivery box. This is dependent on where you live, because for the longest time, we didn't even have it in Toronto. But I know in a lot of major cities now, they'll do something called, I've seen one company called Misfits. Ours is called Odd Bunch. And it's basically produce that would otherwise be thrown away because it's not industry perfect. And you would never know. I get the produce in the box and it's like literally like as if I just picked it out of the grocery store. So I don't know what the industry perfection standards are, but sometimes it's like if there's a tiny little blemish on it, they don't want it at the grocery store. Or maybe it's just also there's a surplus of the item, or they're able to get it at a wholesale price. And even that box that we get right now, like sometimes they'll have flash sales. It'll be like a 40% off sale.
Wow.
So you kind of just got to keep an eye out for the deals. Produce is like my number one non-negotiable, have to have my produce. And so that's usually where I'm looking to save a little bit of money, because honestly, that like I said, if you're buying off season, those can be really expensive.
Yeah. And how do you find? So we talked about the fact that some processed food, obviously, or let's call it junk food more than processed,
Okay.
because oats is processed. So junk food can be quite cheap. And I just wondered, I think there's also this part where when we go vegan, some people think vegan is automatically healthy, which is not the case. It can be quite unhealthy, just like a standard Western diet. If we are eating processed food and junk food all the time. And I was just wondering, if somebody wants to be on a budget, what is your recommendation for, say, right now they're like, well, I'm eating, I buy these burgers that are really cool, but obviously they're expensive. what are the best options for people that want to still have the burger, but they want to spend less and even maybe make it at home?
Yeah.
What are the solutions there if they don't want to
Dried
buy smoked
beans,
meat? Ah,
dried beans, dried rice. You can make your own veggie burgers so easily. I mean, it takes a little bit of work. You definitely have to put in the time to do it. That is the convenience of, junk food. And that's why it does so well, in addition to it being inexpensive and addictive. Like, it's very delicious tasting, let's be honest.
yeah.
So you do have to put in the commitment, but like, it's pretty easy. And dried beans and rice, those kinds of dried food staples, will always be very inexpensive. So I do like canned beans. I stopped buying a long time ago. I invested in an Instant Pot, which is a bit of an investment. I think it was around $70 when I bought it, but you can buy those used. We have like a local thrift store that often has appliances there. You can get all of those things secondhand if you needed to. And like actually, even if you didn't have that, you can cook beans on the stovetop. You can cook them in the oven. So there are a lot of ways to save a little bit of money by doing things from scratch.
Yeah, good call. And in terms of things like smoothies or juices, what's your favorite approach?
Oh, for smoothies and juices?
Yeah. Which one do you prefer?
I used to be really big into juicing. It was like my favorite thing. And I'm one of those people who doesn't like any fruit in their juice. I would do like an all veggie juice. And actually, when my husband and I were on the documentary kick, we watched Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead, which is a great documentary. I believe his name is Joe Cross. He goes on this juicing journey, and it was so inspiring. My husband went out and bought the Hiram juicer, which at the time was like the number one juicer. This was like back in 2012, I believe. It was a long time ago. We still have that juicer. I've used it in my videos. It's a great juicer. It's lasted us 10 plus years. And when I have organic veggies to juice, I'll juice them occasionally. I haven't done it in a while. It is kind of annoying to clean. It's a little bit of a commitment. A friend of ours would juice in batches. So she would juice like maybe 2 or 3 days worth. The nutrient content does go down a little bit with each day. But if you were really like pressed on time and you really needed to batch prep juices, you could. With smoothies, it's kind of the same. Like, I like to batch prep them if I can. If you wanted to blend them fresh every day, I like to do smoothie packs. So you can take a Tupperware and put like 1 banana, some beans, some fruit, handful of spinach, a scoop of chia seeds, flax seeds, whatever you want in your smoothie. Freeze that whole little Tupperware and then scrape it into your blender with a little bit of water or plant milk. And then you have a fresh smoothie ready to go. You don't have to take out all the ingredients every day.
I love that. You're like the queen of practical. I love it. How do you feel? How do you feel? So as we're talking about smoothies, how do you feel about things like protein powders?
Fan.
Yeah.
You'll see in my videos, I use them. When my husband and I were on the health kick, we weren't vegan at that time. So to be fair, we learned like the traditional bodybuilding type of mentality of you need veggies and protein, and that's it. And to be honest, I think that's true. Like, I actually follow a vegan bodybuilder, and she says the same thing. Like, you can do all of that, but still vegan, right? It's just veggies and protein. If you wanted to lean out to be like a stage competing athlete. Yeah. So I think that if you were really following that kind of lifestyle with bodybuilding and weightlifting, that, protein is important. So I just think protein powders are an easy way to get protein into your body. I prefer like the natural one. So we a lot of times buy the plain pea protein, which is just 100% pea, like split peas, I think it is. So we mix that sometimes with the Vega. We usually buy Vega, which not everybody loves, but we're fine with it. So we kind of split those two or mix those two together. And my husband uses it a lot. I don't use it every day. I would say if I was trying to lose weight or something like that, and I just wanted a little extra protein in my diet, then I would incorporate them a little bit more often.
Nice. Do you feel like going vegan has changed your view on things like carbohydrates?
Actually, no, because I didn't really have that strong of an opinion before.
Okay.
Like, other than the veggie protein thing, I didn't really think about carbs or fat or macros or any of that. So, I was never really scared of carbs. I've always just been like a carb lover, but I've also been like the unhealthy carb lover, like the just processed bread and all of those delicious things, pastries.
Yeah.
So I think that like learning more about health instead of just veganism has really changed my opinion on those things in terms of like, okay, obviously I know they're not the healthiest, so I should limit them. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I to be honest with you, since I turned 40, I can't even have grains as much anymore. Like I used to have
Mm,
rice all the time, and my body's like, I don't think so. And
really?
my God, I just can't. Um, I get a pouch. I'm like, okay, we're not having a
Mm,
pouch.
yeah.
So quinoa is fine, buckwheat is fine, but yeah, I can't have much rice. Sometimes I have it, like we go for vegan sushi, which is one of my favorite, and
Mm.
I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have that rice. I don't care that it's
You
not
can
whole food.
you can do homemade vegan sushi with quinoa.
I know, I
It's
know.
not the same.
It's not. It's a lot of work.
It is a lot of
I mean,
work.
I love cooking. I truly, truly love preparing food, but there are some recipes that take longer, like sushi. So just
Yeah,
the patience of rolling things, I'm like, do I really
it's
want to
true.
get through that? Nah.
It's
So
true.
nice when you go to a restaurant, somebody just brings it already rolled out. You have these
It's so
beautiful
true.
chefs that are doing like, whoop, done. So
Someone to do the dishes for you as
yeah,
well. Yeah, I get it.
exactly. So I'm just like, yeah, let's go to a restaurant.
Yeah.
And then yeah, so that is one thing for sure. And I've stopped eating sourdough, which was one of my favorites.
Really?
Yeah, I can't. Bread is just the worst for me. So it's
Oh,
interesting how things
interesting.
have changed. But I'm not a carbophobic. I love carbs. Like
Yeah.
my whole. I would have sweet potatoes. I mean, I'm very high raw, so I have 90% raw food even in winter. But then I will add some sweet potatoes. I will add some quinoa just to bulk up a little bit, especially in the winter when it gets a little bit colder.
Yeah.
And you get really like, I'm hungry and I want something a little bit richer.
Yeah.
So, but definitely, like you were the salad queen, I'm definitely on a salad kick every day. I love salads
If it
because
was
they're not
warmer,
boring.
if it was warmer where I lived, I would eat
Yeah,
them all the time. It's
yeah,
just in the winter, it's hard.
yeah.
It's really hard.
I know stews are great. Stews are great, and
Yeah.
the nice thing with appliances such as like Vitamix, at least we can make raw soups that are warm,
That's true.
but it's still
Yeah.
raw. If we choose to do that, it's not compulsory. But so it's nice to have those options. I really feel, and it's definitely we are lucky in the time that we are now because we have access to so much knowledge, but also um like the appliances to do it with, because
Yes.
before it was really hard. Like maybe people that went to the road had like a dehydrator. We before
Yeah.
Vitamix, how do you really speed things up that fast? They become warm. It's a little challenging. So
Yeah.
I know why like the older raw foodies, for example, we go for things like mostly salads and fruit, right?
Yeah.
It's really tough
Definitely.
otherwise. Um, the other question I have for you is obviously stepping away from the food and in a way, but not completely. So how do you prepare your videos every week? How do you come up with the concept? So I want to bring a little bit of the creator into this as you as a YouTuber.
Yeah.
How do you figure out what's the continuum of your videos from the week before? How you're gonna create content? What trends? What do you look at?
That's a good question. It's kind of a mix of audience recommendations or requests, seasonality, like with going into Thanksgiving and Christmas right now, I'm trying to bring a little bit of holiday aspects in as well. And also kind of just what I'm doing at home, because I do try and keep it like, making sure that it's food that I'm actually eating and I don't want to make anything too extravagant. Even like with holidays coming up, we're not super big on holidays. Like my husband really probably couldn't care less if we didn't celebrate Christmas. I'm like, but we need a Christmas feast and everything. He's like, if you want to make it, go ahead. So I try and do a balance of, what I'm sure people would want to see and maybe what they need help with. I try and put out polls on my community tab on YouTube and ask people what would be the most helpful kind of video for you guys right now. So it's really a mixture of those three things.
I smile because I'm like, all of them, of course. I was one of the repliers. I remember. Yeah, that's a good idea to do it. And how long does it take for you, like in the week, to actually make the video and then edit it and make it, YouTubeable?
It's usually like a 3-day process. And hopefully I can hire on an editor at some point, because that's actually what takes the longest time. I've definitely gone through an evolution of my videos as well, because I actually used to make videos 3 times a week. So I don't even know how I had the time to do that, because I was doing that and still tutoring online. So it was like a lot more chaotic at that time. And I've kind of slowed it down a little bit just for my own mental health. There's like a lot on YouTube where they talk about, you need to make sure you're taking a rest for yourself, because it's a lot of work to think of the idea, film it, shoot it, and edit it and everything. So I'm trying to give myself a little bit more grace. And then as my channel has grown, I just feel that I can put more time and effort into one video and make it really good. And that's kind of where I am with that right now. So yeah.
No, that's smart. That's smart. Yeah. I struggle to film myself. I must say that's another skill that you definitely have, because people ask me to do what I eat in a day, and I'm like, I really want to do it, but I really can't. I don't know how to film myself. I don't know how to. I know I need a course. I know. It's silly. I just get paralyzed by the thought that I have to do it. And I'm like, how am I going to film myself? How do I film do I have the right stand for the phone or the camera? I mean, I have the equipment. I have a really good camera. I have the stand for the camera, but I just do not do the angles things. So I think I don't know, maybe it takes practice, which I haven't given a lot of time to. But I really kudos again for that skill, because I really struggle.
I'll give you some pointers after our chat, and I'll help you with your first one, because it's pretty easy once you get the hang of it. I bought like a $20 little phone tripod. So it's pretty small. It's like this big, and you just set your phone in landscape mode and just kind of set to what you're doing at the moment. And it's pretty easy. You just take it around with you.
And you can post from your phone on it will be fine on YouTube, like it will be the right size.
Well, I usually upload it onto my computer and stitch it all together with an editing app. But there are a lot of free editing apps. I can share some with you later. So
yeah, thank you. Yeah. I think even the listeners will appreciate it, because I think a lot of people want to be more creative, but if they are technologically a little bit challenged like me, then they might be like, I mean, it took me a while to understand how to edit the episodes for the podcast, but that I find actually quite easy. And because I'm recording on the computer, everything is one place. But I definitely, the whole filming on the phone, I struggle mentally with it, unless I'm just doing a little video. Like the editing is like, if I'm talking to the camera, it's completely fine. But if I'm actually doing like cooking, I struggle to understand the angles. So definitely it's a beautiful art, and maybe you should do a course on that too at some point. Okay. But let's talk about your course. I would love to hear more about the food prep course. You run it, 3-4 times a year?
Yeah, usually 4 times a year. I've only had the course going for less than 2 years. So it's still like a learning phase for me as well. I have also had the option of doing like group coaching with it and individual coaching. I didn't offer that last time, and I'm planning to launch it in a couple weeks. What is the day today? In like a week and a half. So this is actually good timing for me to share about that. So the course is a video course, because I feel that I'm just, good at making videos, and I feel that's my best teaching delivery style. So it's a video course, and the video lessons, of course, you can watch over and over. You can download them. So it's a step-by-step guide for meal prep and best practices. And again, it's about finding a meal prep system that works for you. There are like different ways you can do it. You don't always have to do the same style. You can really do whatever fits within your lifestyle or your schedule. There's produce saving tips and tricks. There's a section about learning how to calculate recipe quantities. There's guides for taking kitchen inventory, for using up one ingredient in multiple recipes. And yeah, you have lifetime access to the course. I'm actually planning to do some updates to it and add more content to it, which will be coming early next year. So if you were to purchase the course, you get all of those updates for free as they come out. And I just want to keep improving the course and make it the best vegan meal prep course that there is.
I love that. And you will, because you're really good. And also because you're really passionate, and that comes through in everything you do. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So what do you see? Where do you see Let's Eat Plant go in the future? Because I'm sure you are thinking how to grow, and even financially, right? Like as your channel grows, there are certain collaborations that might come up. What are you thinking? And also just to stay true to your ethos of keeping it about, clean eating and making sure that it's all about really being on budget and aware of what you're buying, like all these little elements that come in, especially when new products come out and then people reach out to you and maybe they don't really align. How do you navigate those waters, and what are you looking for when you think about Let's Eat Plant for like next year?
That's a great question. That's definitely happened a lot already. I've had a lot of people reach out. Will you try this? Let us know. And I'm always open to trying products, if it fits within the lifestyle. And I would never say no just because I don't want to try it. Like I'm definitely open. So that's always an option. But I do try and like take brand deals that I feel would be beneficial to my audience, right? Like, I like I said, I've done that scale. Previously, I had a sponsorship with them. I feel that's a really useful tool, like that's something that I now use every single day. And like the home garden that I have as well, like I've grown all my fresh herbs there and stuff. Like now I'm growing kale and rainbow chard in there.
Nice.
And I'm just like, that's a great tool, like I just like to share these things. If somebody's interested, that's great. It helps support the channel. And if not, no worries. Like that's fine too. So yeah, there's always that kind of financial aspect in my mind with this channel, but I really just want to help people. Like the thing that motivates me the most is getting comments or emails from people that say like, wow, I've started meal prepping and it has saved me so much time. On my last video that I just posted, I had a few comments like that. And I'm like, that's so exciting. I have a lot of new subscribers and I didn't even know that a lot of people were like trying out this system. And so when they share that with me, I just get so excited. So that's really my motivation to keep going. I've had a lot of channel growth this year, so I hope that it continues, but I'm just kind of out here trying to make videos that are helpful to people. And I want to be very inclusive because, I have people who watch my channel who aren't vegan. And I think that's totally fine. I'm like, if you want to incorporate more beans and rice and veggies into your diet, that's awesome. Like, who am I to say no? Yeah. So I even feel the same way with people who use oil. Like I try to be inclusive of people. You don't have to not use oil on my channel. You don't have to use oil on it's whoever. I'm just trying to give inspiration for a healthy way of eating, I guess I would say.
Yeah, I love that. And how do you navigate, obviously living in Canada, making the videos in Canada? Sometimes some products that are available to you there are not available in the US, and vice versa. You might see some things that some of the YouTuber you follow might use, and then you can't get hold of those things. How do you navigate those little discrepancies? And if you have to advise different demographics, because I'm sure a lot of your audience is also in the US.
Yes. Yeah, so you're right. Since they are in the US, I actually do try and be open to companies who primarily serve the US. Like I've had companies reach out and their products are, mainly distributed in the US. And I'm like, I'll still try them because I think that most of my audience would probably be interested in this. I think it's maybe 50% or so of my audience is in the US. But I've also had people watching in Canada who said that they love watching because of the fact that I go to No Frills, which is a supermarket chain that's in Toronto. So I'm like, yeah, you're going to get people from all over the world. And I think that being that most people are in the US, I do try and cater to that demographic.
Yeah, fantastic. Maddie, that was so much fun. I don't know if you have anything that you want to share with everybody, things that like they should look out for, and of course, following you on YouTube and Instagram, and making sure they support you because you're amazing. What else could we tell them? What do you have coming up?
Like I said, my meal prep course will be launching in about a week-ish. And that'll be the last time for this year. And other than that, there's going to be some exciting new content on my channel in the next few months. So yeah, just you can check out Let's Eat Plants if you're interested.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being on the show. And I really love talking to you. You're such good energy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
See you soon. Bye. See you soon. Thank you, Maddie, and thank you everyone for staying on for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Maddie's fantastic to talk to, so I really, really hope that you can follow her on Let's Eat Plants on YouTube and on Instagram. She's so wonderful to listen to. She shares a lot of information, always with an open heart and a smile, and it's really, really good to get those kind of vibes. Also, as we were talking through the episode, as we recorded in 2023, she was sharing that she had the course for plant-based meal prep coming up, and this will happen again in 2024. So stay tuned with her, get in touch with her, subscribe to her newsletter so that when she launches the course again, you can sign up because it really will change your life for the better. All right, guys, until next time, make sure that you subscribe, that you share, that you review, help us grow, and I'll see you next week. Bye.